Welcome back. This is the second part of the boss programming video. Here we will finish her off by creating the chase state, giving her the ability to deal damage to the player and also make her spawn a random enemy each time she'll get hit. Okay, let's get right into it. First of all, let's create the chase behavior. So I'll go inside of my boss's animator, I will select the run animation and then press the add behavior button to add a new C# script called chase behavior. Then we will open it up inside of Visual Studio. Okay, I'll uncomment the first 3 functions and delete the last 2. Then I will simply create a private GameObject variable called player, and also a public float variable for the speed of his run. Inside the onStateEnter function, I will set the player to be equal to the GameObject that has the tag of player attached to it. Then in the onStateUpdate function, I'll first check if the player is not equal to null. If he isn't equal to null, then I'll just say animator.transform.position is equal to vector2.moveTowards, with our current position, so animator.transform.position, the target position, so player.transform.position, and then I'll pass in my speed variable multiplied with time.delta time. This line must be second nature for you by now. But just a little refresher, we are using this line to enable our boss to move towards the player. Okay, so we have now got our 2 states, the patrol state and the chase state. Let's create and add a basic C# script that I will call boss. Then let's double click on it to open it up. I'm going to create a public integer variable for the health of the boss. Then I will copy and paste the take damage function from the player onto the boss, and I'll just remove the update health UI call. Each time the boss takes damage, we want him to summon a random enemy. So at the top of the script, I'll create a public array of enemies. Then inside of my take damage function, I will create a random enemy variable, and I will set it equal to the enemies array with an index of random.range. We'll then pass in our minimum, so 0, and our maximum, which will be the enemies.length. Then I will instantiate the random enemy at the position and rotation of the boss. Now, we don't want the enemy to spawn exactly where the boss is. I will create a public float variable called spawnOffset. And then, when we are instantiating the random enemy at the position of the boss, I'll simply add to it a new vector3 with the x and y coordinates being the spawn offset. Also, I want to detect when the boss has reached half health to change it to the chase state. So for that, I will create a private float variable called half health, and in the start function, I will set it equal to health divided by 2. I will also need a reference to the animator component. So I will create a private animator variable called anim. I'll also set it in the start function to equal getComponent of type animator. In my take damage function, I'll check if health is less or equal than half health, and if it is, then I will write anim.setTrigger, and we called it stage 2. So what we are doing here is detecting when we have got less than half of our health left, and we are setting a trigger so that the run animation plays, thus the chase behavior will run. Now let's open the projectile script, and inside of the onTriggerEnter2D function, I will create a new if statement checking if the object we collided with has a tag of boss. If it does, then we will fetch the boss script on that object, and we will call the take damage function, passing in our damage variable. Okay, with all that done, let's go back inside of Unity. First of all, I will fill in my variables. So for the health, I will choose 10. Then I will drag and drop all 4 of my enemies into the enemies array. And for the spawn offset, I'll choose 20. Then we'll add a box collider 2D that I will reshape correctly, and I will set it to trigger. Also add a rigid body 2D where I will set the gravity scale to 0, and I'll add the Z rotation constraint. Next, we will create the boss tag so that our projectiles can detect if what we hit was the boss. And once it's been created, I'll add it onto the boss. As we're at it, we'll add a boss layer onto him so that he'll not collide with other enemies. So I'll create and add that layer, and then go inside of Edit, Physics 2D, and I'll uncheck collisions between the boss and the enemy's layer. Lastly, I'll not forget to choose a speed for my chase state, so I think a value of 20 is quite good. Let's now press the play button and test it out. So our boss enemy is first patrolling around the scene, Each time we deal him damage, he is spawning a random enemy. Then once he reaches 5 health, he starts chasing us. Amazing. The very last thing we need to do before calling our boss complete is to allow him to also deal damage to the player. So I will create a public int variable called damage. Then, to detect collisions, I will create the void onTriggerEnter2D function. Inside of it, I will check if the collision object, so the object that we collided with, has the tag of player. If it does, then we will get the player components on that object and we will call the takeDamage function, passing in our damage variable. Okay, that should be all, so let's save our script. I'll now set the damage to 1 and press the play button. I am happy to announce you that we have successfully finished creating our boss character. Wow, great job guys. I hope you came up with a cool looking and functioning boss. Even if you didn't, that's okay too, but just the fact that you're watching these videos means that you're on your way to becoming a great game developer. Anyways, that marks the end of this video. Congrats again on finishing your boss, and I'll see you very soon.